Hello and welcome to the Shadow and Soul Storytime podcast. I'm your host, Rayneen Thebeau, and in these episodes we dive deep into shadowy and soulful conversation with the intention of sharing the lessons and the medicine that live within our personal stories and everyday experiences. Oh man, do I have a story for you all today? And before we jump into all of that, for any of you who might be new to the show or new to me or new to Shadow and Soul, I just want to say hello and welcome and thank you and share a little bit more about myself. So let me feel for a second. What do I feel to share about myself? The first word that comes up is simplicity. I deeply crave a simple life and feel I'm a pretty simple person. I am a homebody. I don't own a single pair of jeans. The closest things I have to that are overalls, which I love wearing when I garden. I love cooking and make almost all of mine and my husband's meals. Let me feel. I enjoy rock climbing. I love spending time with family and friends. I love flowers and plants and nature of all kind. And I'll say this as I'll wrap it up. I'm a deeply curious person who is very much fascinated with this experience we call life. And I'm sure my close family and friends would say that I ask maybe too many questions sometimes. And really, that's just rooted in this part of me that I can't separate and I can't deny. Again, back to this curious piece of, I just want to know. I want to know, what is the deepest truth I can find? And well, what is that about? And where did that come from? I'm just so curious and fascinated by the human experience and our mind and the unconscious and our shadows. And also at the same time, there's this deep, 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 deep longing that I feel I've always had and have intentionally been working with over the last very intentionally over the last 9 years or so. I would say that my personal healing journey started about 12 years ago. But this piece of how can I follow my soul? How can I live a life that is divinely guided? And it's those two things together that have really helped me through my own process and my journey and my healing. And on the other side of that desire to live my most fulfilling life is the desire to help others do the same, to help others who are seeking and longing do the same. And I think that's just a perfect segue into the whole purpose of this podcast, which is to, whether it's me sharing or a guest sharing, but sharing what we're walking through in life, what we have walked through in life, and having the opportunity to share that wisdom that is learned through what life is offering us to other people, with the intention and with the hope that those listening, you, are able to feel into these stories and these themes and to draw parallels into your own life and to notice what it is that's bubbling up and calling your attention so that you can find the medicine that's waiting there for you, your medicine, your lessons. So, with all that being said, here's an invitation, so long as it's safe to close your eyes. And if it is not safe to close your eyes, just keep breathing with us and hold this intention with us of may all of you be present and here and open and willing and able to receive with your entire being, right? So to not just listen with your ears and to digest just with your mind, but to fully receive with the body and all of its wisdom. Especially, I'll say this episode is really big on body wisdom. And so just listening to the body, listening to the emotions, paying attention to the memories that come up, the circumstances that come up, just really paying attention. And no, you can come back to this at any point with, when I watch podcasts, I love to personally have my journal with me and a pen. And if there's questions that are being asked that I feel are helpful or something there, I write them down and I come back to them when it's time. And so just all the invitations to let this be whatever you want it and need it to be. So today's story mostly revolves around what, if you're watching YouTube, what you might be seeing here, which is the very last bit of bruising, a tiny little crooked nose, and little scab. I'm on the 10th day of healing from a broken nose. So for those of you listening, you can't quite see that. And this is what this story mostly revolves around. And before we get to there, where does this story start? It starts with the message of rest. When I last sat to be with my process of creating my next solo episode, which was about 2 months ago, I had an idea of what I might be talking about, and that's not what we're talking about today. And when I sat to ask the question though of what would most serve, right? What conversation, what story, what would most serve? The answer I got was rest. Not necessarily as the topic, but as a command, an order, if you will, from that something deeper, greater, wiser, within, without. And when I received that message to rest, I immediately met it with resistance. And it was one of those this was about a month, not even a full month after the launch of this podcast. And I was thinking to myself, but I said I was going to release an episode every other week. And if I rest, then I won't be able to do that because I already gave myself last week to rest because I was just coming back from this trip that was really tiring and I just noticed this story going on in my head and the resistance to resting. And when I noticed the resistance, it was okay, what's here? And as I allowed myself to soften into the invitation to rest and not produce, I started to notice all these beautiful insights of, I can't force this podcast. I can't force the process. The same way that I live my life and operate Shadow and Soul in terms of the offerings that I share, it comes from this place of what is most longing and calling to be moved through me. What is actually longing and calling and creating from that place. And it was why am I treating the podcast any different? This podcast, this hour that we get to spend together, is no different than an ecstatic dance or a workshop or anything else. It's something that is being moved through me and I can't force that process. And so I came to acceptance of okay, if what most serves is that I rest, then I will rest. And as soon as I softened into that, it came like this, like it came up from behind of like, and the next, and like when you are ready, after you have rested, you know, rest well will be what you talk about. And so this whole time, the last 2 months, as I have allowed myself to rest the best I could and knew how, I've been wondering, like, okay, what is my relationship with rest? Da, 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 da. And then this whole thing happened. And rest is definitely a very huge part of the story, and there is so much more here now. And what I'll say, just for, let me feel, for a little bit of background, what is most potent to share? I would say since October of this year, October of this last year, which is when the launch of this podcast was, we're now in the end of January. Since then, it has been like fast paced. It's been lots of expansion. It's been lots of insight. It's been lots of inspiration. It's been lots of growth and really exciting, amazing things, opportunities, ideas, all of it. It's been a lot of all of that really amazing, juicy, exciting stuff. And with that has also come a lot of fear and anxieties and doubts and self-sabotage and fear. Did I mention so much fear? That, you know, I even mentioned in the last podcast that I did with Natalie Granja that I was finding that my nervous system is just getting like really gnarled, and it's just been getting like progressively more and more intense since October. So while, you know, in those 2 months really sitting with rest, what does it mean to me? What is my relationship with it? How is it different now than it used to be? I can say this, that my relationship with rest, even before this happened, was very, very different. So I'll say, like, in that time period of all of the excitement and all of the fears and all of the fast pacedness, I am and was very proud of myself for how I navigated those 2 months, because I felt that, oh my gosh, compared to older versions of me, which, you know, I often refer to being like a recovering workaholic. So compared to these older versions of me, man, am I good, and I have gotten so much better at creating and maintaining space and having spaciousness in my life, of allowing myself to enjoy in things that I didn't used to. Like, I take guitar lessons now. I play with this thing called a pixel whip. I never used to play or let myself do guitar. Like, it was something I always wanted to do, but I never let myself do because I didn't have time for it. And I want to say one of the greatest things that I've noticed over the last 2 months was actually something I've gotten to do with my husband, because when I was in those workaholic ways of being, he's a gamer, and he would often, you know, ask, like, do you want to play with me? And it's like, my answer to that and to every other joyful thing was, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to rest. I don't have time to relax. I don't have time to play. And I want to say it was like maybe a week after this message of it's time to rest that he asked me if I wanted. He was getting this new game called Baldur's Gate, and he asked, like, do you want to play with me? I'm getting this game. And I felt that initial urge and response come up of, I don't have time. I didn't say it, but it was coming up. I could feel it coming up of like, I don't have time. And as I felt it coming up, I was like, whoa, is that true? Is that actually true? And the answer is no. Like, it's not true. I totally have time. And so I was like, okay, like, yeah, I'll play. And what I found, you know, while playing with him, and we've been playing like pretty consistently a couple times a week for me, which is like crazy. okay, crazy, was that it was so amazing because I was in this place of like all these ideas and inspiration and insight and thinking and like planning and like expansion and growth and this and opportunity and da 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 da, as well as like all of the lower like feelings of like fear and anxiety and just like it was so intense and so overwhelming that getting to drop into a video game with my husband where this particular video game you like create your character, like you customize it like crazy. I named mine Shadow. She's super cool looking. She's got like horns and a tail, and she's just like this wicked creature that like is connected to the earth and it like fights for human. It's amazing. So you get to create this whole like character, and like every decision you make affects the game and like how many options there. It feels like life, right? So it's so consuming. And because I was so consumed in this game, there wasn't room for the insights and the inspiration and the da 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 da, and there wasn't room for the fear and the this and the da 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 da, because I was just so present in the game. And I would have these moments where I would come out of being consumed by the game in like the most helpful and beautiful ways, enough to pop out and just look over and see my husband and like us sitting on the couch and like the fur babies are close and just having this like sweet, overwhelmingly like warm and happy contentment of like, like rest, like a kind of rest that I didn't yet know because my relationship has been ever changing, from like someone who couldn't even like rest on like just sit on the couch and rest because I was always going, to someone who eventually was able to lay in a hammock for like 10 or 15 minutes, like, and that was the only way to rest, to, you know, just this ever evolving to now being in a place where like I can unplug and, you know, having to, you know, the word that almost wants to come up is like distract, but I don't mean that in like a judgmental kind of way, but like letting myself unplug from all of the daily shenanigans and quote unquote distract myself with something I could be fully present in. Like that was another layer of rest that I had not yet experienced. And so not only was I excited and proud of myself for that, but also as I've been seeing like the fear and the anxieties and all of the things that have been coming up with the growth and the expansion and the ideas and the this and the that, was that I felt I was really present to like, hey, this fear is coming up. Like, hey, I'm really aware of all the fears and all the anxieties and all the stories and all the self-sabotage. Like I see you. And when I saw those things, I really leaned in with curiosity of like, where is this coming from? What is this about? What do you need from me? Because we are moving toward expansion. We are moving toward growth. We are moving toward these things that you deeply desire. We are moving towards this like soul nudge and guidance to like do this. We're doing it. We're doing the thing. So we're going to need you to come with. So what do you need? And going and doing those things like a, you know, I mentioned this in the last episode with Natalie Granja. If you haven't listened to it yet, it's so beautiful. But it's like, for me, some of the very tangible things to soothe some of these parts of fear was like literally making my house feel more secure, because I have a partly home-based business. So like getting new locking storm doors, getting new doors, getting a security system, like doing all these things, these tangible things of tending. So I was like, yeah, like I feel like I'm doing so good and I'm doing so good. And I was, and I am. And this next layer of the story that we get to move into, let me feel for the right words, showed me that there's more for me, which has also been really bumping up against the parts of myself that as I move toward expansion and more abundance and longing to call those things in, I have noticed this part of myself that has been very resistant and unable to receive, for all of the millions of reasons. It's a totally different podcast. That's not what we're here to talk about. It's just helpful to note because, let me feel. One moment. ooh, there's something juicy here. So here, I'm just going to take a pause point for a moment because two things are happening. There's a part of my process that feels like somewhat blocked, but it's also a little bit of a teaching moment, and maybe it'll come back. So what I'll say about so much of the stuff that we're about to touch into is the unconscious, right? And I often say, like, shit is slippery. It is slippery. And especially when we're in process and like currently uncovering things, it's like, because the things are in the unconscious. So we're talking about shadow work. Like, shadow work is really just the unconscious. It's what we are not yet really aware of and seeing and feeling and knowing. And so when we do this kind of work, like, it's like slippery stuff will come up. It's like that thing that kind of just like slides up the back that maybe doesn't really make sense, and it could be easy to judge, it could be easy to push away, it could be easy to like shrug off. It's also that kind of stuff that like you'll like get that insight or the inspiration, or you'll like get the aha moment, but then it's like gone. It's like the light bulb goes on, but then it goes off again. And that's kind of what just happened for me right now. And so, and who knows, maybe the whole purpose of all of that was just for me to be able to say this. But I will say that as we continue down this conversation, as we get more and more into these kind of dark, hidden, unconscious, slippery kind of places, to just pay attention. And also, the same way that I'm going to trust right now, this deep invitation to trust that what comes up is what is meant to come up. What you're meant to see is what you're meant to see. What is meant to land and stick will land and stick, and we don't have to grasp. So who knows, maybe other pieces will come back, maybe it won't. We'll just leave it at that for now, I guess. Let me feel what's next then. I think I found the piece. So I was talking about receiving, that I've been having a hard time allowing myself to receive the abundance that I'm calling in. I found this connecting thread into what I'm about to share now with this story of, even though I am super proud of how I have been navigating and like where I am in my relationship with work and rest and everything in between, that I have been shown that there is more for me. There's more rest, there's more spaciousness, there's more of all the things that I crave. And what I have noticed is that the same block and resistance and difficulty receiving with the abundance is the same block and resistance and difficulty receiving in more of what I crave and more of what I long for. Because there's this part of me that tells a story of, don't you have enough? Like, how could you ask for more? And so this is another good pause point, because I feel like that is a super universal thing for some people, of being so grateful for everything that you have and being so proud of for exactly where you are, which is so beautiful, so beautiful. And I find that there can come with that sometimes a trap when there are more longings and more desires, because it's like, but it's also already so good. Like, how could we ask for more? And it's tricky, because it's like, to stay grateful and humble is beautiful and so important. And it's just as beautiful and just as important to not deny ourselves more. To not deny ourselves the callings and the longings and the callings and the longings and the desires that we have. Like, we're in an ever shifting and changing and expanding relationship with everything around us. We're ever evolving. Why would our desires stop? Why would our longings and our callings stop? And why are we not allowing ourselves to receive more and more and more? And maybe that isn't resonant for you, or maybe you're like, oh my gosh, I guess I get it. I have a hard time receiving. And so just this moment to feel before we move into the rest of the story, because there's so much to feel into, just to kind of let all that sink and settle, just to kind of take a mental note of anything that's already stirring for you. jot it down maybe if you can, or if it would be helpful. Maybe take a really deep breath. Now we'll move into the rest of the story. All right. Good Lord. So this, my broken nose, happened about 10 days ago on a Sunday. Let me feel, what is the most important and potent things I can share about this story? It was a Sunday. Those plans for that Sunday for me and my husband were that we were going to like sleep in and like leisurely have a slow morning, and then we were going to go on and try this new hike in an area that's pretty close. Well, it's not terribly close, but it's not terribly far either. We were going to go try a new hike, and we were going to try a new coffee spot that's kind of like nestled like in the woods. It was supposed to be such a beautiful, fun day, and eventually we will have that adventure. That is not what we got. Because while we were still in bed, what happened was that we got to sleep in, we were like waking up leisurely, and I asked Kelton for kisses and touches all over, because I will often like sing to him, I wanna kiss you all over, and I'll like just, it's like this thing that I do with him. But I wanted the kisses. So I asked him for kisses and touches all over. And two things happened at the same exact time as he sat up to honor this request. So he sits up. Now I am like, heck yeah, I'm getting ready to receive. Well, all this hair was underneath me, and like sometimes when my hair gets stuck underneath like my back, it's like, you know, I'm like not comfortable. It like kind of pulls my head funny. So I will do this thing when I'm in bed that we'll probably never do again, where I like pop my head up real quick and just like pull my hair out from underneath me. So instead of like, you know, rolling over, like doing it with control, it's like pop, pop, and like I pull my hair out. So that happened at the same time that because he had just sat up, was getting excited and playfully was like preparing to like pounce and turn. So as he's like preparing to like pounce on me, I'm like preparing to receive and pop my head up really fast, and his elbow just connected and hit me just straight into my nose, like just elbow straight to nose with a lot of force coming from both directions. There was a very loud crack. It makes both of us feel nauseous to think about the sound of that crack. And it was just, everything just happened so fast. It was like, sure, like shock, like, just what is happening? Like the noise, like, my eyes are now watering. I can't see. Like he's like already seeing blood that I'm not aware of yet. So he's like gone and grabbing tissues from the bathroom and coming back. And I'm like, what? Like now I'm just kind of like panicking a little bit. Like trying to like orient myself. He's like giving me tissues. I like look up at him enough. I'm like, is it crooked? Because I heard the crack. And when I asked him, is it crooked? And he's like, a little. Like, what? I just like run to the bathroom and I like look at myself. I see like the blood and like the slight little crook here. And I immediately, it's very dramatic, I fell to my knees and I was like, no. Then I started bawling. I started actually crying. And I was like, we have to go to the hospital now. So we go to the hospital, you know, get checked in, do all the things. It's really just this long, you know, when you go to the ER, it's just this long waiting game. Like nothing is happening like that fast for like non-real emergency situations. And I wanted to say, like, you know, majority of this time is just so heavy and sad, and I'm like crying on and off, and Kelton feels terrible. He feels so bad, and he's holding it all together though. Like he's just making sure I'm okay, holding space for me. And I just know how bad he feels. I know how terrible he feels. It really wasn't until after I got my CAT scan that there was like any like break from the heaviness of the morning. Because after, and this is what I'll say too, like makes me emotional actually thinking about it. Because up to that point, I kind of felt dismissed a little bit and like not being taken seriously because my vitals are pretty low naturally. And so when I got there, even though my vitals were elevated more than normal, it looked normal to them. And I also have a pretty high pain tolerance. And so when they asked like my pain scale, I was like, it's like a 6, which that's what it was. I mean, truthfully, physically, it didn't really, to me, hurt all that much. Like I was struggling mentally and emotionally big time. And my nose at this point was so swollen that you couldn't see the tiny little offset. There was no bruising yet. So I just felt kind of dismissed until the lady who came to get me for my CAT scan. And nothing, she didn't even do anything like crazy or spectacular, but I just felt off of her a genuine, like, are you okay? Like, I don't know, just a genuine concern, like a genuine, like tender, loving care. Yeah, it does make me emotional. When I just feel like that's just what I needed. And not to say that I wasn't getting that from my husband, right? Like I totally was. And it was like I was getting the first external validation from somebody that would just like let me soften a little bit. Like, yeah, like I am really struggling. And this is really hard to be seen and to be like, huh, like, okay, there's this desire to be seen in everything and also in our struggle, right? Like in our suffering. And so when I got that from that lady who took my CAT scan, when I came back from that, let me pause actually. Is there something to feel in here? No, we'll keep going for now. So I get back from my CAT scan, and because I had enough of that softening, like now I'm like, okay, like I've gotten a CAT scan. We're gonna like wait on these results. Like somebody sees me, even if everyone else doesn't see me. Like, and these results are gonna like validate like what I'm experiencing right now. And that's when I finally that was finally when Kelton and I had some like actual conversation because it just been kind of heavy and stuck, and like there really wasn't a lot of conversation. And what I decided to talk about was that I was just sharing a little bit of what was happening inside of my head through the whole morning when I wasn't just like the sheer like, oh my nose, like, oh like how is it gonna like look the same after, just like all that talk, as well as the part of me that's like, why did this happen? Because I deeply believe that things in life happen for us, not to us. And so I'm like, what is it? What is the lesson here? What is the medicine here? What is this for? Like, what is this for? Well, my poor little like brain that's just struggling was like, oh my God, what if you have a brain tumor? And what if that was the only way to get you here to catch it in time was to have a broken nose so you would get a CAT scan, and holy shit, what if you have a brain tumor? Like, that's like what my brain was doing. And that's when I finally that's what I shared with Kelton, and it just like it made us laugh a little bit. We finally started to like crack some jokes about like, goddamn, this is fucked up. We were kind of surprised that nobody had asked me if I felt safe, so we started to make abuse jokes to each other, which of course, like I said, like would never. And on one hand I'll say that I'm kind of grateful that nobody asked, because I just feel like for nobody to ask, I hope that to Kelton that feels like affirming that he just does not feel like, you know what I mean? Like there was no vibes of that. Poor guy. But we finally started to laugh, and we finally started to like find some levity in the situation. And so I think this is a good pause point, because goddamn, can life just be really like unfortunate sometimes, right? Like accidents of all kinds, misfortunes of all kinds, uh, what is the word I'm looking for? Inconveniences of all kinds. Like you probably have several that you can think of right now in your own life. And so here's just this invitation of like two-part. One, like, what are the ways you can bring some levity and laughter and humor? Who can you do that with? And then two, which will lead us perfectly into this next section, is can we be curious about what's there for us? Because there's so much there for us. Okay. So now what I'm going to share with you are, so if that's day 0, I'm on day 10 of healing. I want to share with you now the most potent bits that I've pulled out so much medicine and so many lessons, and like there's so much material and content here for me and wisdom. Like there's so much we could just talk. We're already like, 30 plus minutes in. I'm not trying to make this too long, so I have like boiled down to the things that I feel are most potent and universal. And so we're just going to kind of move our way through that now. And the thing that's coming up right now is like kind of just what we were just talking about a little bit a second ago, is like life is gonna be life, and it can be really easy to shrug life off, especially if like you're resilient, because it's like, I'm fine, like, you know what I mean, like there's a toughness to you, there's a resilience to you, like there's like a natural part of you to be like, you accept it and it's okay and it's good, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. Those are all beautiful, amazing qualities that I think it would serve everyone to expand their capacity to do. And I believe that we deny ourselves and we short ourselves more depth and growth and embodied wisdom when we aren't when we just look at life as like, it's just, shit happens. It is what it is. Because yes, shit does happen. Shit does happen. And it is what it is. Like, those are both true statements. So there's like no judgment here. It's just when shit just happens and when things are just the way they are, what would it be like to bring another layer of curiosity and be like, and why did this shit happen? And why is this shit the way that it is? Like, what is here for me? So if anything has come up for you, as we've been talking about, like just the shitstorm that life can be, that's your material. Like, that's the material you have to work with. I love I made a post about this the other day, actually, about like, if our life was school, basically, and all of the circumstances that we were experiencing was like our course load. Like, what lessons are you learning right now? And I mean, shit, you might be on like spring vacation and hopefully enjoying that and soaking that up. Or you might be in that crunch time, like right before midterms or finals, where you're like stressed and pulling all-nighters and you're like, oh my God, like, ah. Or you could be like totally off playing and partying, like, and having this beautiful balance of like, I'm doing my shit and I'm also like having fun on the weekends. Or you can be like totally like, and I say this from personal experience, just like, having a real rough go of it, like failing classes, like super depressed. Like, what are you learning? What are you learning? All right, so let's move into this first piece. So this was the next morning after, and it was just before I was about to step into my practice. And what I want to say about practice before I continue, because a lot of these came up for me through my practice, not all of them, but a lot of them, is that when I say practice, I mean, like, if I had to just like simplify it, practice is literally just, or not just like not important, but like just as in simplicity of intentional time to be with self and your process. And I see a practice as a place where we get to decompress, where we get to process, where we get to be introspective, where we get to like sift around and look at things and be like, what am I feeling? What am I experiencing? What is that like? Just like very inquisitive. And it's also an opportunity to tend to the things that we're finding, like, and sourced from who knows what tools and skills you have. Like a practice, again, it's intentional time with self. So a practice could literally be like, I'm going to go through the very ritual process of like making this coffee and then going sitting on my back deck and like listening to the birds and being in conversation with myself and the world around me and like what is on offer here. Amazing practice. Or it could be like a very like proper practice where you're like smudging the house and like lighting candles and putting incense and music on, and you're doing like, dancing and yoga and like a whole ritual and ceremony. It can be anything. It's just intentional time with self to uncover and tend to what you're finding, to give yourself what you need. So I think that's really important to say. And it's also kind of like one of those things of like, we'll talk probably more about this at the end, but like, just like real quick, like quick question, like to self, like, do you make time for yourself to have intentional time with self? And if no, not a judgment, just curious, like, could you? What would that be like? So anyways, I'm about to go into my practice as using the restroom, washing my hands. And when I was washing my hands, I noticed I was really, really struggling to look at myself in the mirror. Like, could not look at myself in the mirror. I was just like, it was so uncomfortable. And I was like, oh, your practice has started. Because here's another truth, discomfort brings many, 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 many gifts. This is why I'm like kind of obsessed with like shadow work and dark, uncomfortable things, because I know that there's such medicine there. So as I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm noticing how hard it is to do that, to look at myself, to receive myself, I'm asking myself these questions of like, why is it so hard to look at yourself? Like, what is happening here? And, the first things that start to come up are like, what if it never goes back to the way it was? Like, what if my nose looks different from now on? What if my nose, like, just, I'll say like, quote unquote, like shallow or superficial things. Not like, again, not from a place of judgment, but it is just very like the physical, the exterior, like the way I am perceived, the way I perceive myself, like just this very physical outer layer of like, oh my God, like what if it never goes back to the way it was, which is very valid. Like, this is my body, this is my face, very valid. This is my money maker, right? Like there's all these like things that are like going on in my head. So there's that layer. And I could have chosen to like stop there and be like, okay, that's why you're uncomfortable. But I didn't stop there. I continue to ask like, and what's underneath that? And what's underneath that? And what about a layer deeper? And what's underneath that? And the deeper and deeper I let myself go, what I really ended up finding, and from this like place inside where I could like see and feel myself, it was like on the inside, it was like, no, like, and the quality and the tone of that like movement and that sound of my voice and the saying the no, like what it brought up was there really was this fear of death, of a version of myself and a version of my life that even if this exterior was to go back exactly as it was, that from this point, I will never again be the same. That there is parts of self that are dying, that there's a version of my life that is coming to an end. And even though it's exciting to look ahead and be like, wow, like life will never again be the same. Like maybe it's more abundant, more expansive, more this, more that. Maybe I'm, growing and transforming and more vibrant and more that, all good things. And there is still a death that is happening. And what I realized in that moment was that, well, two things. Here's a crazy little side comment before we get into this other thing. The day before my nose broke was the 1 year anniversary of a burial service that I had for myself, where I, like a time capsule of sorts, like collected all these items of mine that represented these different parts of myself that I was putting to rest. And I like literally like packaged it up and I buried it in the ground in my backyard. And when I realized that, I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. But aside from that, it's like I'm looking at like, okay, with that death and of the version, like death to a version of self and a version of life, like even though all these other things are exciting that I'm moving toward, there's still grief there. Like grief and fear are a part of death and loss. And what I noticed was, although I felt like I had been skilled at being able to see and name and come to deeper understanding and even tend to the fears and the anxieties and the stories that were coming up for me as I was in this process of expanding, that in other ways I was still bypassing part of the experience. That I was still like, it's one thing to intellectualize and to know and to be aware of the fact that I'm afraid and I have all these like self-sabotage things coming up and the gnarly anxiety that I can feel in my body. That is one layer, and that was the one layer I was like tapped into and addressing. And there was this whole other layer of like, holy crap, not only was I not really giving like my body the chance to really, really like actually feel these things and like actually let these big emotions and energies like move into my body so they could move through and out of my body and like actually be alchemized and like actually go through this process to be released or whatever. Not only was I not giving myself that actual opportunity, but I was then able to see what I was doing from a different angle of like, there was a little bit of like this train is going, like we're leaving, like what do you need? Like I'll do the thing, but like we gotta go, right? It was kind of like forcing these parts of myself that were afraid and not ready and all of that kind of stuff. I was like forcing them to come with me. Like, we're going, like, bitch, like, let's do this thing. And not giving her, them, my body the proper time to like actually just be and feel. So I want to pause there because I feel like there's two big things that like I would love for you to feel into for yourself. And one, it's like looking at these things in your life, these struggles, these challenges, these circumstances. Can you start to get more curious about what is there for you? Like, what is it that you're experiencing? Because like, here's the other thing. Although my very first, like I said, I didn't start bawling and crying when I first broke my nose until I realized it was crooked. So like, even though my first initial response, and even then looking in the mirror of like, what is the discomfort here? Even though that like the top layer of discomfort and like not feeling good had to do with quote unquote superficial or shallow things, the deeper I've let myself go into uncovering and feeling into all of the layers and the like deep deeper like levels of medicine and all that kind of stuff. It's like from the superficial and the shallow, I went like deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and the deeper and the deeper and the deeper I went, and the deeper I stayed, and allowed myself to feel fully and like actually like move through these things. It was like this like healing process started from the inside moving out, where like now the concerns had way less to do with these things that I first noticed on the outside. Like those started to like be less and less important. They started to carry less and less of the weight of what was actually going on, because it was like, whoa, this is what actually going on. And so using your life as a mirror, looking at these like circumstances out here, like in your 3D world, can you be curious about the deeper and the deeper and the deeper and the deeper layers of things that is happening on the inside of you? So that's one. And then the other thing is like this bypassing thing of like, can you just be curious and aware of when you might be kind of like passing parts of your process and like kind of like skipping ahead without really like tending to and feeling all of the things along the way? Yeah, those are the two good questions for that. Because really, when you bypass, what I'm learning anyway, is like when I have been bypassing my body, I've not been allowing myself to fully feel everything that there is to be felt, which means that I've also not been able to express everything, like the things that have needed to be expressed have not had the proper room and the space to express, which has then left me like disembodied, right? Like it's not been super embodied, which then means there's this lack of integrating, which then means that there's this lack of recalibrating, which would more efficiently allow those parts of myself to be like, oh, okay, we are going, cool, let's go, I'm ready now. So yeah, just feeling into like where you may be skipping some of that stuff, because it's really fucking uncomfortable. So I'm not gonna like lie to you, like say that stuff's not the reason that we skip it is because it's uncomfortable. It's because like we don't want to go there. And that's why it's so important. Like, can you carve out safe time and space for you to let yourself go there when it serves to go there? So okay, so on to the next piece. Was this thing about rest. So we've already talked about rest a little bit, but I was learning, like I had mentioned, that to let myself have more rest and more spaciousness than I even thought that I needed. Like more than I have, I've been on this journey of allowing myself more rest and more spaciousness, more rest and more spaciousness. And it's gotten to this point of what to me felt like a peak of like, this is peak rest and spaciousness. Like how could you ask for more? And I was really being given this opportunity to let myself ask for more and to let myself receive more. Like really, 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 like really, really rest. Like when I mean rest, like to that extent, like the things that start to come up are like, fuck off the to-do lists, fuck off the obligations, unplug from everything and everyone that you share yourself and your energy with, and just call all of yourself back so that it's just about you and you are truly, truly resting and you are truly, truly unplugged, because from there is when you can really rest and really resource yourself. It's like the unplugging that allows the recharging. And I'll say that I understand that it's hard to do that, and that we all have different schedules and different lives and different like things that are calling at us. And it's just this question of in what ways would it serve to allow yourself more rest, more spaciousness, more self-tending and nourishment? Because in order, it's like first and more, it's like sometimes, like I'll say this, like the main reason that we ought to let ourselves do that and receive that is because that's what's genuinely, truly best for us. And I understand that sometimes, especially if you're someone who's like a giver, you know, I get that. So it's like your motivation is maybe more sourced of like, well, I really want to give to the other, to my people around me, my family, my friends, my community, whatever it might be, whatever it is that you're giving away to. Here's the thing. You will give better and more if you give to yourself fully first. We're going to circle back to this one, but well, no, let's just kind of like ease our way into this actually. So from that resting piece into, so this next piece that I wrote down is receiving my own medicine first and fully. I found in my practices, and this has been like this for, years, because this is what I've been doing for years, that when I had an insight come up for myself, that it would take me away, and it would immediately take me away to like, how am I going to serve this medicine to other? And it would take me out of my process. It would take me out of the receiving of my own medicine. And I continue to notice that happen after of me, like, we're kind of moving in a little bit of order of how these things landed, where it was like, okay, I need to rest. I need to unplug. I'm jumping off of social media, like not like deactivating my accounts or anything, but I'm just like, I'm not going to spend my time there. I'm not going to spend my time in conversation. I'm pulling all of me. Like, we're not doing anything right now, except we're just here. We're just here with you, body. And we're resting and we're giving you what you need. Now, in the process of resting and giving myself what I need, now I'm starting to like, I am starting to receive the medicine that's there for me. And when I was starting to receive the medicine that's there for me, my first instinct was to want to share it right away. Like, oh, like, how am I going to share this? Like, oh, like, where am I going to like, just like, and I noticed that the more and more I did that, it would take me out of my process. It would take me out of my receiving. It would take me out of my medicine. So there's this like lesson that I was running into of like, I must first and fully receive my own medicine before I can then offer it to someone else. Because if I don't, one, I'm denying myself my own medicine, and it's not going to be as potent when I share it. But if I fully let myself receive it, then I'm not denying it, I'm fully receiving it. And then it's even more potent when I share it, which is like a win-win. And I totally understand for those of you who like maybe have similar ways of being, where it's like, we want to give, we want to serve, we want to like love on the outside. And I think that's really beautiful. And like, can you receive your love and your medicine and your time and your attention and your prioritization first and fully before you share it, knowing that that is what's, not only is that what's best for you, but it's also what's best for those that you're sharing with. So I really want to pause. I want to give you a moment to feel into like those last two. I feel like are pretty connected, like the rest, the spaciousness, the tending, the receiving of your own medicine first and fully before you share it with others, and just kind of like letting that land, noticing what's coming up on circumstances, because it doesn't have to look anything like me, right? Like, it doesn't have to look anything like me, because we give in a million different ways, right? So it's just paying attention to where do you give, and also what is your relationship with receiving from yourself first and fully before. Yeah. Okay. Let me feel. Okay, yeah, this is the perfect transition. Because here's the thing. If you don't give yourself what you need and what you want and what you crave and what you deeply long for and what you, I think what I said it again, I think I already said it, what you need. I'm just going to circle back to that's a big one. If you don't give it to yourself, God, Goddess, life, the universe will definitely give it to you. And, it might not be delivered in the most palatable of ways, right? Like my body was deeply craving to be seen, to fully feel and to process, to rest, to receive of my own medicine. And I wasn't giving it to like the fullest extent because I had this story of like, that's too much. Like, don't you have enough already? Like, da da da, whatever, whatever. And so then guess what? I mean, there's more reasons there why I didn't allow myself those things and like why I was depriving myself and denying myself in whatever ways. But I got my chance. God gave it to me with a busted fucking face. Like, which is like, it's like tough love, right? Like, it's like, oh God. And so I had this moment where it was like, I literally found myself apologizing to my body because I was like, I'm so sorry that it took this for me to give you what you've been wanting and what you've been asking for. And so I don't say this to like make you afraid and be like, oh God, like what is life gonna dish me? And like, oh God, like what am I calling in? Like, oh God, like it's not, we're not being punished. I want to say that, like, we are not being punished. I'm not being punished. Like, you're not being punished. We're being given opportunities. And it's like, it makes me think of like dark goddess energy, where it's like, if we're not going to take those opportunities, like, it's like we're not listening, we're not paying attention, like, we're not, then life is going to get loud. Life is going to get busy. Life is going to get chaotic because it's like, hey, like, pay fucking attention. Like, hello. So for me, I was already starting to like learn this lesson, and then I just had it like a huge kick in the ass because I went into my TP. This is like, I don't know, several days ago now. I went into my TP and I noticed that a fucking squirrel had chewed through like one of the main ropes that like ties at the top of the TP around like all of the top holes. Not only did it chew through at one of those main ropes, it also chewed a huge hole in one of my smoke flaps. And I don't know how it happened, but one of the strings for like this thing called the ozone, which like collects and like moves water from like the top to like the outside of the teepee, like snapped and was like fallen. And then I looked over and like the rope that is like on the, like, it holds up this like liner that helps to like control temperature, was like literally hanging on by a thread. I took a picture of it. I'm going to post it because I'm going to make a meme out of it, because what happened was like, I came in, I saw all this shit on the ground. And I was like, well, first I noticed the ozone thing was hanging. I was like, what? And then I noticed all the shit on the ground. I'm like, what the fuck is all of this? Like, this like little rope pieces and like the canvas pieces. And I like look up and there's like a broken rope and a big hole. I'm like, what the? And then I look over here, I see this fucking string hanging on by a thread. And I'm like, that is my mental sanity right now. Like, I am barely hanging on by a thread. Like, what the fuck? Like, what did I do to deserve this? Why is this happening? Because it's like, I've already been processing all this shit. So like, why are you throwing more shit at me? Like, this has got to be a joke. Like, what is this about? And I literally had a fucking pity party. I totally had a breakdown. I was just like, I don't even know what to fucking do. And now I'll say this, at the moment, I had not come to like, what is the medicine here? Because I was just so like, what the fuck? Like, really? Like, really? The chaos, right? And I didn't know at the time what the medicine was. I do know what it is now. I'll get to that in a second. But before that happened, I called my mom and I was like, she's got a lot going on in her life too. And so I start by like asking her, like, catch me up on all the things. She catches me up on all the things. And I'm like, okay, are you ready for this now? Because she's just told me about all the shenanigans in her life. And now I'm telling her about the shenanigans in my life. And I'm telling her about the TP. I'm telling her about all the things. And we kind of were just together. We're just having this like pity party, like, what the fuck, kind of like, God damn it. We're having this moment together. And there were these words that she said. that I don't want to say stung, but they pinged me in that moment. But because I was kind of feeling in a similar energy, I didn't say anything about it. But as the days went on, it like settled in more and more. And the words were from my mom. She's talking about the circumstances in her life. And she said, I am not that powerful. Like, I am not calling this in. I don't know what and she's just saying like things. And that's how I felt about the teepee. I'm like, I'm not calling this shit in. Like, what the fuck? Like, but as the days went, what I have come to is that we are that powerful. We really, really are that powerful. And we really, really are calling it in. And again, it's not like calling it in with this negative connotation of like punishment, or like that we're doing something wrong, or that like we deserve it, or like that's what you get. It's not that energy at all. It's that really, truly, everything that we step through in life, even and especially the challenging things, are opportunities for us, for healing, for growth, for transformation, for embodied wisdom. Like, they're opportunities. They're opportunities if we take them. And it's like life will get louder and louder and louder and louder, trying to get our attention. And I almost feel like, sometimes, again, back to this resiliency piece, maybe, it's like a double-edged sword where like, yeah, resiliency is so necessary. And can we still be curious though? Like, can we not just get through it? Can we actually let it move through and inform us, right? Let me feel. Oh, yeah. Just, I'm going to pause there and I'm going to give you a second to feel like what happens in your body when you feel into these words of, we are that powerful. You are that powerful. That everything in your life right now is divinely orchestrated for you. Like, what does that bring up? Does it bring up fear? Does it bring up anger? Does it bring up sadness? Does it bring up curiosity? Like, what? Nothing is wrong or bad. It just really is this, like, how can we be so, 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 so curious as life is happening all around us? Remembering that it's not happening to us, it's happening for us. Because, and here's what I'll say, like, this piece around power, as I continue to sit with those words and lean into like, okay, well, why is this happening? Why is the teepee? What is the teepee about now? Because this feels like seemingly unrelated, but the timing of it, like, are you kidding me? Oh man, what I found. Two things. I'll start with the more tangible thing. As I had been reevaluating like this receiving of my own medicine first and fully, well, I feel like for me personally, that part of that which I crave most, I think I mentioned this at the start, is like one of my deepest longings and callings and craving is to live my most fulfilling life, my most soul fulfilling life, and then in turn be able to help other people do the same. But I cannot help people do the same if I'm not doing it first, if I'm not receiving my medicine first. And part of my medicine for self and my soul desire isn't all just about business and the work that I do in the world and service to others. Like, I have a whole other life that I want to tend to. And what the TP showed me, especially, which is just while I was sitting with all this stuff, and like while I was like really sitting again with this like medicine piece of like, what is it that I need, what is like my medicine, like, and what I started to do in those days leading up to the TP thing. So this is leading up to the TP thing. I started to write down these master lists of like, what is it that I want, like, how am I spending my time? You know, when I unplugged from all the things, I'm really like, I'm drawing all my energy back to myself, all of my power back to myself. And I'm asking like, okay, like, what do we want to do with this? Like, what, you know, this is a death. This is a breaking point. This is a pivot point. How do I want to move forward from here? And so when I started to make these to-do lists of like, what is it that I want? And like all the daydreaming and that kind of stuff, 90% of the things on like my to-do list in terms of like the things that like I wanted and like was craving were house projects. And these house projects have been on my to-do list for at least 5 years since I moved into this, over 5 years since I moved into this house. And barely any of them have gotten checked off. And it's such like, now looking back, I'm like, damn, what a glaring signpost, like a glaring red flag, a fucking like sparkler, whatever those things are called. Like, why have I not been tending to these desires? And it was this moment of like, oh my God, here I am, like going toward expansion, doing this, doing that, doing this, doing more, da 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 da. Not only while my body and like not giving my body the time it needs to like process and integrate all this stuff, but I'm also like denying all these other parts of myself that like I want things, but it's like we only have so much time and so much energy. And it's like, of course, like I need to learn to like be a better steward of my time and my energy before I go on and like put more time and more energy into this thing that I'm already so proficient and like motivated at, right? I'm so proficient and motivated to serve. And I think that's beautiful. And that's not where more of my time and my energy needs. Like it needs to be redistributed to the rest of like my pie, right? Like that's one slice of the pie. It needs to be. So I already kind of see that in those couple of days of like, okay. And I had started to make some decisions of like, okay, I'm going to give myself, like, I'm going to balance my time and my schedule a little differently this way. So then when the TV thing happened, I was like, what the fuck? Like, I just got done realizing that like I needed to do like all of these things. I need to start letting myself do all these things. Like, why are you adding one more goddamn thing to my list? And like what it showed me was like, because we had to get your attention. Like now it is very, very clear. And now it is like, you will not do what you have continued to do in the past, which is just kind of ignore these desires and these like things on your to-do list and like create more time and spaciousness and then allot that time and spaciousness to work instead of to yourself and tending to your physical body and your temple, as well as like your temple is in your home. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna fuck up your TP. We're gonna fuck up your temple because that's the temple of like where you serve. And like that will get your attention more than it gets your attention over here. And even though that seems kind of fucked up, what I'll say the beautiful the beautiful thing about it though is I was already wanting to restring the liner for other reasons. But that was one more thing on my list that I had not been letting myself do. And so it's like, yes, it's tough love. And yes, it's like definitely uncomfortable and super inconvenient and painful and like stressful and all the things. And these things also get to be an opportunity for you to look into, what is this for? Like, what do I get to do with this? Like, how does this inform me moving forward so that I am better tending to myself and my desires and my longings and my callings? Like, that is what that's about. This is why we do this work. I mean, to be curious, to really lean into life as it's happening, and to be able to be an alchemist, to take what is happening around you and to transform it into something that serves and supports your life and your being and your evolution. So I'm going to pause because I feel like there was just like a lot there. And I just want you to feel. Like, just feel what's here, what's present. Maybe take a deep breath. And again, just one more time, wrapping back to this power piece, like you are that powerful. You are. And so how do we own that? And how do we claim that? And how do we, from owning it and claiming it, like, okay, I can own this, and I can own my power. I can claim my power. And then when we intentionally wield it, then we get to create more beautiful things with it, instead of having life create this chaos storm trying to help us in that process. And which, by the way, like, power is a whole or separate thing for a whole or separate episode. But what feels connected to, like, our purposes here as we round out this conversation is, when these things are happening, we've already been talking about this, right? Like, looking at life, being super curious, leaning in. When I was leaning into the power piece and, like, these words and, like, owning it and claiming it and, like, seeing, like, oh, this is why it happened. Like, ooh, okay, like, oh, I see what you had to do there. Again, like, okay, like, I'm paying more attention. I'm awake. I get it. I'm receiving this medicine. I'm receiving this opportunity. Leaning more and more into all of the things that are getting stirred up. It's like this continual process of, like, just layers and layers, and, like, it's like a freaking spiral, and it's just all of this stuff. Here, let me pause. Let me feel. How do I want to say this? It's just a never-ending process. That's really what I'm just trying to get at. It's a never-ending process of paying attention, being curious, noticing what comes up. And when things come up, having the capacity to really hold it and feel it and allow it to move through you, and to allow whatever it is that's coming up to come up, because it's time to come up and it's time to be felt. And, like, you know, it's like life happens on a spiral, this never ending spiral that is just taking us back home to self and to source. And this incarnation that we have right now, it's just this never ending spiral. And you get to work through layers and layers and layers of all of the traumas and all of the things and all of the shenanigans and all of the experience that life has ever given you. We just get to be on this spiral of working through it over and over and over and over and over and over again. Like, rinse and repeat over and over and over again. And when we have the tools and the skills to be able to take ourselves through that process, to really hold ourselves through that process, to help us navigate that process, it's like, it's softened. Again, it's like that healing from the inside out. It softens the realities happening around us, while at the same time resourcing us with more wisdom along the way, which then gives us this perspective and this really deep sense of, like, acceptance and peace and gratitude and awe for this life and everything that we get to experience. Everything that we get to experience. Yeah. There's so much there. There's so much there for you in your life. There's so much medicine. There's so many lessons. There's so much healing. There's so much wisdom. And, you know, it's hard. It's fucking hard, and it's really uncomfortable, and it fucking sucks sometimes. And it is made a whole lot easier when you have tools and skills and community, perspective, when you allow yourself to be in this process with yourself more graciously and gently and tenderly and with loving discipline, and so if you're going through all this stuff, just know that like you're not alone. And know that you so got this. And if you're deeply craving for more of the tools and more of the skills to be able to navigate all of these things with more grace, with more love, with community behind you, like, you found us, like, we're here. And like all these things that I've done for myself all of the ways that I've uncovered all of these lessons and these medicines, my ability to be doing this and offering this to you now, like, it really is for me personally rooted in this medicine that I have found along the way, that I give myself and that I feel so called to offer up, right? And so come join us. Come join us if it calls. And if not, that's totally cool too. Just go where you're called. Go do the thing. Like, don't deny yourself. Yeah. Trying to feel if there's anything else. I think that's it. I mean, after I get off of here, I'm about to go have my nose reset. And it feels really, really beautiful to be able to share this story with you and to really see it come full circle on the spiral of like this first major outer superficial, again, without judgment, just like this outer layer concern of like, oh God, will it look the same after, to go deeper and deeper and deeper and to find everything else that was going on and to see all of the divine, like, you know, the orchestration of it all, just to go in, to see all of it, to learn all of it, to feel all of it, to receive all the medicines, all the medicine, and like through that process to come back on the other side where I do feel just like, you know, there's a little bit of a pain in my face right now, and I'm just so in acceptance of whatever happens and whatever it looks like. And even if it does look different after this, I feel like I would be okay with that. And I would let it serve as a reminder to all of these really potent, nourishing things and lessons and wisdom that I've uncovered along the way. And that's just so what I pray for anyone who craves it and wants it, that you can have it. You really can. Like, you can be the alchemist. You can take everything that life is giving you and you can learn from it and you can grow from it and you can fully receive it for the medicine that it is. Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. Really, the greatest way that you can share your support is by letting me know that you're listening. Leave a comment, share on social media, tag me so that I can show some love back. Leave a rating or review, all of the things. Share it with a friend you feel it might serve. Like, these are the best ways. And yeah, I'm just super grateful that I get to do this, that we get to do this. And if you do want to join us, I'd so invite you to. You can check us out. All the links are in the description and the bios and all that kind of stuff. So Sending so much love.